Did you get your safety briefing?
Very quickly.
So I got down to 2 degrees last night. Good morning. Welcome back to another episode. We appreciate you guys tuning in. This week, we got a lot going on. This should be a good one. We've got our boys that visited, so that was super cool, with their girlfriends. So it was some good family time. And then we've got the heater.
Oh, yes.
We're going to work, we're going stage 2 on the propane heater. So we're going to work on that. And then we also called the DNR, and if you're not familiar, Department of Natural Resources, which is a really good resource for people that live in rural areas. And the state forester, or a forester with DNR, came out and gave us a lot of really good advice. Primarily because we are in zone 10. I think we've covered this, but if we haven't and you've not tuned in before or you don't remember, because we go over a lot, we are in a fire zone 10. They rate them from 0 to 10.
And 10 being
That's as high as they get.
the most scary.
10 being the highest, meaning good luck. So there's a lot of things that we want to do to be able to mitigate any fire hazard danger. So if a forest fire came through here, because you can see it's just all pine trees, and the pine needles have not been dealt with, maybe ever.
Yeah, there's a lot. Preventative maintenance is what we're all about.
Hopefully a little education as well. So if you're interested in moving somewhere like this, or you already live somewhere like this, the hope is, and he was a really nice guy, very open. We asked him, hey, do you mind if we record these? He's like, yeah, have at it. So a lot of really good information there towards the end of the episode. Be sure and stick around for that. We're going to have a little fun first. We've got some breakfast. We'll do the heater because we need to be warm.
Yes.
And then we're going to do a little work, because when your boys come to visit, you put them to work, right? And you make it sound like fun. Seem like fun. We actually didn't do a lot of work, but we did get quite a bit done. And it was actually more helpful than you boys probably realize with what we did. So thank you. Let's get after it. So it got cold again. Hey, here's the good news. The pipes didn't freeze. The well didn't freeze. The water's still going. We took everybody's advice. All the cupboards were open. The water was dripping.
Yep.
And all was good. The pellet stove was running all night. And it was able to keep up at 46. We're going to stage 2.
More heat.
What's for breakfast?
It's a...
That's the look of leftovers. In case you didn't recognize that, I'm sure all the guys did. We're going to actually go back and reinvestigate. I think they can see it. The big dinosaur.
The vintage propane heater.
See if we can light it manually and not blow the place up. I know half the people watching just did what you just did.
What?
And, well, to verify that the ignition is the only problem. Because if the gas flows and you try and light it without the ignition, like a fake ignition, and it still doesn't go, then you got bigger problems. The ignition works, so there's no problem with that. That was the previous guy, thought that was something wrong. So I think he possibly was having a problem getting the pilot light lit, because those are always a super pain in the butt. And then I noticed he unplugged the thermostat for the fan, so the fan is running like 24/7. So back here, so I'm going to fix that. Obviously get the exhaust hooked back up before we do anything crazy. So I'm almost thinking, well, we've got this out to replace the thermocoupler, because we know the ignition works. We've scraped all the junk residue out of here. Let's unscrew this. Put that new thermocoupler in here just in case, since we've already got it apart. And we'll go from there. Should be good. Should be good. Nice and tight. Thermocoupler, got that replaced. Finally, I brought every tool in the house just to make sure I didn't have to make 16 more trips. So, Lisa, you ready?
Ready.
All right, so this should be riveting TV. This should be riveting YouTube. Is that the new term? So enjoy. I have determined. Was that funny?
Pilot lit. Hey Siri, set a 1-minute timer.
Oh my God! It worked.
Oh, sweet!
I feel like we should have a kumbaya moment.
Kumbaya moment. It's already like heat out there.
That's just crazy. That's super cool. I mean, it seems so easy, but it took several hours to get to where we're at. So how cool is that? More heat in the cabin.
Yes.
All right, today's tree cutting day. I've got my son with me, his girlfriend, lovely girlfriend, Jada. Jada should be, boom, right there. And my oldest son, Garrett, boom, right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut a tree down in this wonderful, beautiful, not sunny weather. And here's the goal. So, safety, number one. This guy, he's a leaner that way, but the bigger problem, I was putting up these lights yesterday. These beautiful, what do they call them? Bistro lights. Lisa's bistro lights. But if you look, don't get dizzy, hang on to your hats. If you look up there, you'll see that like all the bark is gone. Oh, the snow is kind of pretty. You look up there. So anyway, we're going to cut that down slowly. If it feels good, if it's too slippery and too sketchy, then no deal. In the event that you're not aware how close to the cabin we are, boop, 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 it's right there. So we don't obviously want to hit the cabin. Got a tree right there that should make sure we don't do that. The propane tank, that bigger tree over there, should make sure we don't hit that. We should be good. Yes. Right? What could possibly go wrong? Okay. Is he there? There he is. This is my youngest son, Grant, and his wonderful girlfriend, Lexi.
Hi.
What up? Okay, so, Lisa, did we go through? Yeah, we did. So we got the tree down. It was a beautiful landing. And for those of you that weren't here for the first safety briefing, the closest ambulance is probably an hour and a half away.
Okay. So it's
No
helicopter
no helicopter today. The weather, they would say nay, not going. We've got a good LZ up here, but the weather is not in our favor. So here's what we're doing. We've got one tree down. We're trying to get this other one down. It's a little sketchy. So we're trying to double down on our sketchiness. And we've got the rope to make sure it doesn't hit Lisa's bistro lights, because those are the most important. And we'll see what happens. One more success. We got it done. Says he did a pretty good job. I think now has as much experience as I do. And thank you to those that said those tracks need to be adjusted. If he runs over anything, can you let me know? Yeah. It makes me nervous with the Jeep. But you're absolutely right. So that's about all we're going to do today until I figure out where that little box is to put the Zerk fitting for the oil, for the grease, and we'll get that stretched out. So thank you. You guys are awesome.
Pine is going to be better adapted, especially with the climate coming that we're getting.
Okay.
You know, we're going to become hotter, we're going to become drier. Pine's more adapted for that.
Okay.
That crown on that pine is not the healthiest, so you can see it's pretty small. It's not very branched out. Like this pine over here has a nice, well-shaped crown.
Okay.
It's pretty green. Even this bigger one here, because of the duck fir encroaching on it and then two pine on either side, it's kind of had to get kind of spindly and narrow.
Okay.
That's not going to make that big of a difference, but I guess it would be preference to you on. It's nice to have a little bit of duck fur for the species diversity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then, so you've got some of these that branch off into two midway or 3/4 of the way up.
Yeah.
Are those weaker?
Yeah, they can be weaker, and that's a good branch.
Okay.
I think I saw some mistletoe in your pine in one of your trees. So it could have been like a mistletoe infection that got in there, or maybe some gall rust.
Okay.
Caused an issue, and it's been, a long time ago.
Interesting. Okay.
And finally decided to break there. It's kind of hard to tell what's happening up there. Oh. So it's just like a parasitic plant that gets on there, and it penetrates into the branch, and then it just steals nutrients from the tree. And the tree thinks something's wrong, so it actually sends more nutrients and stuff.
Okay.
And so then that's why you get the witch's brooms, because it's actually the tree's trying to grow more for some reason, trying to heal itself, and so then it creates a big ball of stuff. And it's a plant, so it does its own photosynthesis and stuff. It's just stealing like the water and nutrients. So it doesn't ever really kill the tree, but what it can do is if it was like a younger tree when it got it, it can get into the bole of the tree and cause a spot of decay or weakness. It's not really something to be overly concerned about, especially if you're not concerned about trying to like grow baby trees. That's about the only time that's really an issue. But yeah, so like a tree like this, you have a duck fir growing underneath it, and you look at that pine, it's not very healthy pine, it's got some mistletoe in it. Yeah. Spruce, spruce is probably not your best option in a spot like this. They like quite a bit more moist areas. It'll do okay in spots, but over time it's probably not going to be that healthy of a tree. Okay. And if I've ever seen a tree catch fire, it throws a member first.
Okay. All right. Well, his days are numbered.
And so another good general rule of spacing between trees, 21 inches, 21 and a half. You multiply it by 1 1/4. So 21, we'll go 21 by 1 1/4 is 26.25, and then you add 2 to that actually, and so that should be between trees roughly how wide they should be at this side.
Finally, some math to figure that out. Okay, good.
And that's very general. It doesn't like compute across the board. Okay. But it gives you.
But at least it gives you something to start from.
Yep.
Okay.
It's definitely in the ballpark. Like it's all site specific about like how much precipitation, the soils, and all that. But that gets you in the ballpark.
Okay.
And so if you think a tree like this, we're only 4 feet away from each other. If you could totally take quite a few of these out, and be okay. Okay. Now I know that that you don't have to do that. That's just a good idea.
So where to start? Okay.
But like here, you got 2 trees here, but you have nothing going that way, right? Yep. So, weigh that when you decide. Take your objectives into account. You like the trees. You want to keep the forest look, that aesthetic. So, you don't have to go that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So how you
like all this underbrush, and some of these trees are falling over. Hawthorn's bleeding back into here. Like this stuff, like I'm guessing most of that in a perfect world would be kind of cleaned up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like this would be a good example of if you wanted to prune up. I guess to talk about the pruning, at least 10 feet higher the better. You don't want to take 50% of the live crown. So if you have a small tree like that little one right there, I wouldn't even prune it at all. Okay. But like on the I think it's a Doug fir or maybe a grand fir to the left there, about where you have it's good. Maybe one more rung wouldn't hurt, but you don't. Okay. I wouldn't go any more than half of the live crown. Okay. And usually on your more shade tolerant species like Doug fir and grand fir, like no more than a third of the live crown. Okay. Pine's a little bit more resilient to pruning it a little harder. But yeah, so you got, again, ladder fuels going right up to your crown. Torching, when you look up at the crown up above, we get prevailing wind usually this way, right? So if fire's coming, there's a good chance that it is just going to run through that whole string of trees. Okay. If the conditions are right? Yep. So when you get out into more of your open forest like this, it's okay to get clumps here or there. What I tell landowners is like, if you like these wildlife clumps, treat pretty heavily around them. And so again, if you have the isolated torching event going on, that it's kind of isolated to that area and doesn't continue to run throughout your whole forest. Okay. It doesn't hurt to even go in a spot like this and prune all those up.
Where you've got the branches all the way down to the ground.
Try to just lift it.
I was concerned about some of those guys with a house too.
Yep.
Where it's super low. That one tree that's got the circle, that guy's going to go.
It's a healthy looking tree. Maybe some damage on the one side, but it is pretty close to the house. But
yep.
I mean, if you want about trees falling on your house, you'd have to take out quite a few around there. They're probably 130 foot tall trees, so you'd have to clear out 130 feet around your house.
Yeah.
But yeah, like in that little area there, there's some grand fir and stuff because it's a little bit more moist in there. You get a little bit more moisture. It's on kind of a microclimate of north-facing slope there, where it probably stays a little cooler. Okay. So you're going to get the grand fir in there. Grand fir is not that hardy of a species. It's not going to do well if we do end up having hotter, drier summers, like we've been seeing. Okay. That's usually my target species to get rid of is the grand fir. It's okay to have a handful, but when you start to get too many, it's bad. So the natural succession of the forest, is like if we start from ground zero of a disturbance, the fire comes in and just nukes everything. you start with your stand initiation, and it's going to be your early cereal species, which are going to be your ponderosa pine, western larch, Doug fir. Those are going to grow up first, and then underneath is going to be your more shade-tolerant species, more Doug fir and a lot of grand fir. And naturally, what happens in this landscape is we get a wildfire. The wildfire comes through and burn all those little trees, and grand fir aren't fire adapted, so they don't have the thick bark to survive, and so it kills them. And then they die, and the pines keep growing because they have the thick bark and survive the fire. And then, you know, again, the grand fir come back up underneath, and we get another fire. So a fire occurred in this area every 5 to 25 years. And so it just kept, you know, kept the hawthorn down, kept those grand firs down. So you didn't end up with stuff like this where you got a big grand fir growing up. And you did occasionally, but you know, fire is supposed to burn in a mosaic, and so you're supposed to have areas where it's dense like this, and then areas where it's open like this. And so that's pretty natural. Yep. But since we exclude fire, trying to mimic that with mechanical treatments is the best way to do it. So just try to keep that in your mind when you're doing things. Just trying to keep, you know, you can kind of see this as a south-facing slope here. That's why it's a little drier, a little more open. You see pretty much pure pine. Okay. Where that little microcycle there, you put the grand fir. Doesn't get sun, stays cool, keeps the moisture longer throughout the summer. The snow sits on it longer. Just, you know, more and more nutrients, probably maybe a little bit different, deeper soils, because we get the wind from this side that usually lands on the low soil, usually lands on the low soil. So just like kind of keep that in your mind when you go and you start picking out. This right here is about right spacing for like a mature pine forest. They could open it up maybe a smidge more, but okay, this is pretty good spacing in here. Okay. Well, yeah, it'd just be, you know, for work to do, be cleaning up the hawthorn and stuff, trying to reduce the ladder fuels. And then, you know, if you wanted to take out some of your younger regeneration, it wouldn't be a bad idea. You don't have to. It's not like it's in abundance right now.
Yeah, our biggest thing is this hawthorn. I didn't want to take it out. That's good advice to wait. So it's got all that nutrients in the ground waiting for spring. So I was going to try and forego the mud.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, how long does it stay moist? Is that even, because I come from Pacific Northwest where it's rainforest.
Yeah, so, I mean, it varies. So, like, 2021, when the Buck Creek fire happened and everything, you know, it was like 2002, we were dry. We're bone dried.
Okay.
And this last spring, we were wet until August almost, because we just kept getting rainstorm after rainstorm. So it's I guess it's kind of hard for me to say, but in the springtime, it's going to be like April, May to about July, and then it gets shut off because of IFDL rules. Yeah. You can't run chainsaws in the woods and stuff at certain times. Yeah. All that fun stuff. So here's where I'm going to piss you off. So pine gets what's called the Epps beetle. It's a pine engraver. Okay. And so right now, until about late summer, it's a bad window to create pine slash to pile it.
Oh, really?
Because they're attracted to the green pine slash. And they're not flying right now, they're in the trees. And then if you create the green pine slash, fairly large pile, they like branches about yay big, in a fairly large pile. They'll get into that pile, they'll live in there, and they'll actually reproduce in that pile that year, and then fly. If they don't have another pile to go to, they'll take their life. So they say if you're not going to dispose of the pine slash as you're generating it right now, that is bad to start even in January through like mid to late summer to make pine slash.
But then you're kind of in the jam because you shouldn't be doing that much work in the forest during that hot season, right?
Yeah, so the best time to do anything with pine is in the fall. So you get this short little window in the fall to do pine. And the theory behind that is that they do their last flight and they're in the trees that they're going to be in, and then you start doing work in the fall, and then the pine has all winter long to dry out. So once it's dry, they don't like to get into this. So it has all winter long to dry out, and then just leave it on the ground next spring, and when they start to fly, they won't get into it. No food.
But would it be better than to headed and just burn that immediately?
You can try. Okay. It's hard to burn green slash. Yeah. That's why most people don't do it. Yeah. But if you have the time and you get a good fire stoked and it's going, and you just feed a couple branches at a time, you can usually get pretty good consumption. So yes, if you can, yeah. Okay. And trying to get it dried out as fast as possible. So if you have no other option, like trying to get it out in the sunlight to where it has good sunlight hitting it so it dries it out really quick, and chunking it up into small pieces, or if you have a bigger tree that you need to take, cut up the firewood, get it stashed somewhere it's going to dry out real quick. I've been told that masticating, which is like grinding it up, chipping it, doesn't cause issues, and I think that's a lie, because I just did some thinning work not so far away from here in that window with mastication, and I ended up with exposure. So interesting. It's not, again, it's not the end of the world. Like, there's bugs and stuff in every forest. It's just you don't want to get it to the point where it's causing an issue. Yeah, you want to make a small problem bigger. Yeah, for the ones that you leave. And so as there's less and less water, more and more trees we can remove. Fewer trees we can have on the landscape, the better those trees are going to be able to stand
for. As things get drier, one of our plans was to have irrigation, especially around the structures, to keep things moist. Good idea, not really worth it? Or
if you have the means and the capability to water trees, they love it. So. Okay. Yeah, even if you start seeing a sick tree, maybe it's the middle of summer. Usually trees don't respond very quickly to drought. So you usually don't see it until like a year later. Okay. But hot summer, you're like, man, it seems like everything's super dry. I mean, like, pine needs to be like extremely dry. Okay. Like, there's no point to water pine if it's been raining here or there and it's not been 120 degrees for a month straight like we did in 2021. Okay. Pine doesn't really respond to it all that well, and in fact, you can overwater pine. But
our thought was just to keep things moist on the ground around the structure, so if a fire came through, that at least you'd have a little bit of a green zone.
Yep. That 5 to 30 feet, that's great to do. Keep it green in there. Okay. And then try to find fire adapted species of brush and stuff if you want to have brush. Okay. If you want that. Ones that don't have like a volatile waxy surface on them, they stay green all summer long, even if you didn't water them. Don't have like papery bark, anything if that's going to carry fire. You want something that's going to stay green. Trying to think of one off the top of my head to give you a quick answer.
We can look that up. Google does pretty good. The gas tank, do you guys see issues with those? No?
The worst it would do would be like if you had a lot of fuel around it, you got a lot of heat, the off gas, and then maybe that would catch fire. But
okay, good. What else should we do? He's cracking.
I hope it's gonna go that way.
That big a tree, unless
smaller. Go.
Would be what I'd want. And again, going back to that drip line, trying to clear everything out, especially this close to the structure. Targeting your grain for again. You know, this is really dense in here, so I would take like all 3 of those out, all 4 really. Okay. Kind of prune it up if you want to keep this big one here. That's fine. Prune it up 10 feet. So like Western Larch is a really good species to keep in here. Like another one of those fire-resistant ones.
Which one is that?
So those are actually living. So Western Larch are citrus. Okay. So they drop their needles. Okay. They're a conifer tree, but they're deciduous. So they're really, really valuable and a really good tree to keep. Okay. So I'd say pine and those would be my priority to keep in this area. And then duck fir, and then your grand fir. There is a pretty hefty penalty if you cut their tree down and they didn't want it to.
Yeah, we would always check. Ours skirts off something close to this.
Yeah, so I mean, got a little bit good now. Yeah. Those ones in the back that you're starting to get bucked skin, those are dead. Okay. But these ones are all alive. That one just has a spike knot in it, like the pine did back there, but that's a big deal. Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'd be looking for in here. would be getting rid of those ladder fuels. You know, you got a great big beautiful pine. You have the fork, so it's kind of a weaker tree, but it is a big beautiful pine. Clearing out around that for longevity of forest health, that's like the best option.
And that would help that tree be more healthy because that would provide more water.
Correct.
Because the other trees aren't taking
Correct.
it.
Yeah, these grandfers are sucking the water up from it. So.
Okay.
And so it's like it's a 50-50 cost share program, and so you can do the work yourself, and that goes towards the cost.
Okay.
And I have a self-cost statement. So you just keep track of your hours of like chainsaw hours, if you use any equipment, keep track of those hours, and then also you just keep track of your hours by themselves that you're out here and stuff, doing anything, skidding slash or whatever, by hand. And then if you get those done, kind of what I just told you, the specs being the 8-inch under and the drip line, pruning 10 feet, and then the brush doing what we kind of talked about, either you clear it all or lethal pot once you're there. There's a price per acre that I can reimburse you to, and it'd probably for this be around like $750, maybe $800 an acre, depending on how it all adds up to the different rates. And I sign you up for that. You do the work, and then you keep track of your hours, self-cost statement. And then if I gave you just general $1,000 an acre, you showed $2,000, you get the full amount. If you showed like $1,500, I 50/50 it. If you showed $2,500, I have to cap it off with that $1,000.
Gotcha.
You can see there's a big cavity there, and there's kind of a branch that's kind of wonky coming out of it.
Okay.
Just kind of a scar almost on the left side of the. That's usually a weak point, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to break off. But if it was, it might be a spot. Overall, it looks like a really good tree. Well, Grand Persian native, it just is not really fire adapted and stuff. So it just comes in. It's a late cereal species instead of that early cereal species. So you want to keep that. You want to try to keep the early cereal species because they're usually the ones that tend to be more fire adapted and drought tolerant. One tree that's not here on the landscape, and I don't know if it ever really was that much in the blues, a little bit more moist, but it's white pine.
Okay.
And the reason it's no longer here is because of the white pine blister rust.
Okay.
It's a rust that came in, and it goes through like ground crop, like ribes and ferns, and then gets in the branch and eventually just kills the tree. So it essentially decimated the entire population of white pine. But they have started to make blister rust resistant strains. And so that might be a tree if you guys want variety. It's a pine. It's a 5-native pine. And so, that area we talked about there, and then like through here, trimming up some of these Doug fir, maybe cutting down a few of them, and cutting down the hawthorn. And it'll probably be, with funding I'm going to get, it'll probably be like a year contract, so you'd have about a year to do the work.
Okay. I guess my only last question would be, any hawthorn that you'd like to see still?
If there is water that you get in there in the summer and there's like, oh man, there is some water trickling through here, keeping some around the stream is a good idea.
Okay.
Shade's good for streams. It keeps the water temperature down.
Yeah.
It also keeps turbidity and bank stabilization, so you don't get erosion.
Okay.
So it keeps that down a little bit. So that would be my biggest one. It's a good habitat thing. So for you, if you like to see you don't like that perfectly parked out aesthetic, and you want some broken up.
Oh yeah.
I'm fine with you leaving that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, I think it's balance with everything we do.
Yeah, and then my biologist will say, and that's another thing that you guys can have too if you want. We have a region biologist that's available to the public. Okay. And if you want to have him out to talk about wildlife, he's more than happy to come out and you talk to you about the bird houses and that type of thing, and making structures and stuff and snags and all that. So just so you guys know, that is a resource if you got to get on the DNR website. It's something you get interested in down the future.
Good to know. All right, man.
Cool. It was nice meeting you.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for coming out.
Get warm.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah.